everybody, and welcome back to the I Don't Know Running podcast, where we share our experiences that make running fun and sometimes not so fun. I'm Lewis, and I'm a self-admitted lazy ultra runner, and I'm on my own this week. Just the way schedules go, sometimes, as we've mentioned before on the podcast, is just does not work out. And this was one of those weeks where Mitch had a retirement party, and then I was Mr. Plumber yesterday. I was working on our basement sewage lift pump, which is not fun. I've actually had to do this before. We've been in this house for quite a long time, and when we bought it, I actually had to replace the initial one like within a year of getting the house, which was a major bummer. Maybe it wasn't within a year, but it seemed like very quick. At any rate, we've been here for, 20 plus years now, and the one that I put in then went. So yay. Fortunately, it was just the basement bathroom, so it wasn't the whole house. We weren't like shut down. But anyway, that took a big part of my day yesterday, because that's not what I do. I am not a plumber. I don't know how to do that stuff. So it's usually a lot of YouTube, and it's actually a pretty simple process. But when it has been, 15-ish years, as often happens with house projects, when they're getting old like that, you open up a can of worms when you jump into fixing something. So what I thought was going to be, 3 or 4 hours of doing this, which I think it would have been had I not had some additional issues that I had to fix pop up during the process. So that put a damper on our recording a podcast yesterday. So, which we really have some really cool things we want to talk about in a backyard. They call them backyard style ultras, where they are typically they're a last man standing style ultra marathon. And so we will be discussing that next week. I don't want to go into too much detail, but there is currently actually one going on right now. I do not believe that it has finished up yet. I could be wrong on that, but Mitch and I will get into that next week. It's pretty cool. And I think it's a really neat concept too. What I really like about it is you can go out and just test yourself. At the end of the day, it is a race, and it is about the last man standing. But if you ever wanted to test yourself on distance or just how fast can I run? Well, actually, it wouldn't be how fast necessarily, because the format is it's like 4 something miles, 4.1 something maybe. And you complete that in 1 hour, and you have to be back at the start finish in that 1 hour time frame. So if it takes you 40 minutes, boom, you go sit down, you rest, make sure you are back in the starting corral before that 1 hour time frame, and they start the next group that is there, that has shown back up, and you keep doing that on and on and on until there is only one person that completes that final lap. And I do believe, I don't remember how it goes, if the last person has to complete the last lap or just be in the starting corral or what it is. But at any rate, we want to go over that. It's really neat. And there's a big one going on right now. I think it's Big's Backyard Ultra, and just some of the stuff that's going on with it. So we'll get into that next week. But this week, I wanted to go over something that I think many runners, I don't want to say struggle with, but I suppose it can be a struggle. Actually, I suppose you could say I'm struggling with it right now. And that's just mental toughness. When it comes to running, mental strength is a big part of running, and I've said that several times. I think that's a big part of when I was mentally healthy during running, that it allowed me to finish races that I probably, if I was mentally, perfect example, San Diego 100. I did not finish that. I was really not strong mentally during that race. I think uh, I think the mental state that I was in going into that race, there was no way I was going to complete that race. There just was no way. And I think that especially during big events like that, big, ultras like that, 100 milers, you pretty much have to be, I don't know what the percentage is, but you got to be in a decently good mental state to complete some of those runs. It just, you hit too many low spots during an ultra like that where, yeah, if you have a crack in the foundation, it's going to be really hard to complete those runs. So at any rate, so yeah, I wanted to go over that. And one of the things I want to start with was just a quick, what I think is a nice summary of, why mental strength is crucial for runners. And this is kind of a, uh, just a putting some words to why it is important. So this is, while physical endurance helps you move forward, it's mental resilience that pushes you through tough workouts, maintains your focus during long distances, and keeps you going when fatigue or self-doubt set in. In high-pressure moments like the final miles of a marathon or the last sprint of a 5K, mental toughness becomes the key factor that separates those who achieve their goals from those who give up. And I can attest to that. It's also the foundation that supports consistent training, handles setbacks, and finds motivation even on hard days, making it just as vital as physical preparation for a successful running journey. And I can speak from experience with a lot of what's said in this. And I agree with a lot. I would say all of what's said in this. And I would say I would agree with it as a kind of a general summary, because sure, there are outliers where you actually weren't in a good mental state and you were able to push through and get something, but in a race or you achieved a goal. But I don't think that that's common. I think that's usually not what happens. More often than not, the common thing that happens. I'm at a loss for words today. That is not the norm. The norm would be that, if you're not mentally strong, it usually is going to lead to a less than desirable outcome in your runs, whether that's a training run or a race. So here are some things. Just wanted to go over a few things that could help shape and strengthen your mental toughness. And I'm going to land on one specifically because I feel like it's where I'm at today. But the first one is just setting small, achievable goals. And I mean, this one makes sense in order to help you get through whatever it is, breaking down a big goal like a marathon into smaller, manageable steps, an ultra like 100. It's really hard to go into that going, all right, one down, 99 to go. Instead, one of the things that I like to do is, let's say it's a loop course and it's 5 20-mile loops. Well, you break it down into 5 loops. You just get through the first loop, and then you take the loops and you actually break those down into aid station stops. So if there's 4 aid station stops, all right, get through 1 down, 3 to go. And then as you complete a lap, you've got 1 down, 4 to go. So again, yeah, just breaking those things down versus trying to bite off everything all at once. The old adage of how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, not all in one bite. So yeah, and it goes on to say discussing the power of focusing on the next mile or workout instead of the whole race can help to build your confidence. I know when I go out for there's times where I get up in the morning let's be honest, I don't go out for runs in the morning too often, but when I do, getting me out the door, what helps to get me out the door is focusing on the 1 mile start of the run, not the whatever 8 to 10 miles that I want or have planned to get in. Sometimes if I focus on that 8 to 10, it is very hard to get out the door. I don't want to. For whatever reason, I don't want to go out and do that day. Well, if I just focus on, you know what, I'm going to let myself have a break and I'm just going to go get in a whatever, 3, 4, 5 mile run. Oftentimes, if I just focus on getting out the door and I'm out there, it actually then motivates me when I get to mile 3, 4, 5, or 6. Oh, hey, I can get in the 8 to 10 that I wanted to get in. So that's really important. This is an important piece of the mental toughness thing, because what this is ultimately doing then is building that mental toughness. You were able to get out the door and get in your run. The next thing is embracing discomfort. And this one's huge. I think this one would probably fall in a top 10 for sure. And this list is not the most important ones. These are just some that were thrown together. But embracing discomfort is a huge one. And it says mental toughness often means learning to run through discomfort and fatigue. And it goes on to talk about how runners can build resilience by practicing mindfulness techniques, embracing the challenge, and reframing discomfort as a sign of progress. Yeah, you are going to hit times in a race. Well, I would say across the board, they just come in different forms of discomfort. For a 5K, that is your lungs burning. Your legs are on fire. Things like that you have to embrace. I mean, it's just how it is. You're going to be breathing heavy. Your throat's going to burn. So that is a discomfort that you have to learn how to overcome and embrace. And for a marathon, it might be similar but different. This one, it would be a really big one mentally. You are going to get weak in those miles of 16 to 18 is usually where it starts, to about mile 24 probably. Once you get through those miles, you are going to have a lot of discomfort, whether that be muscular, joint. Who knows, if you're really on top of it and you are moving, it could be lungs are burning a little bit, or just different forms of discomfort. Arms, as Mitch talked about on one of the runs he had recently, the marathons that he had recently, where his arms literally were hurting because of not having gotten in the miles prior to that run. But if you can teach yourself that is just indeed discomfort, and get through that is going to build mental toughness. And where that comes in is in your training runs. Learn to break through the barrier of just being in some level of discomfort during your runs. And it's a perfect time to do that in your training runs. Next one is just building a positive mindset. Positive self-talk and visualization are powerful tools for mental toughness. One of the things they talk about often is giving yourself a phrase or a word that boosts your spirit, your feelings, your emotions during a run. Deep into a run, a lot of times people will have a phrase that they like to say that helps to keep them going, that helps to boost their spirits. You might think of crossing the finish line that helps boost your spirits, things like that. Or you're training for a race, you're on a training run, and the mental visualization that you want to have is breaking your PR or something like that helps give you a positive mindset in the moment that you're in, to help break through you're just in a moment of weakness during your run. So yeah, replace all those negative thoughts that you have during that moment and replace them with positive thoughts or a positive mindset through positive self-talk and visualization efforts. And next one is staying consistent and disciplined. And this is something that I do struggle with. Anybody that's listened to the podcast for a little bit of time knows this. Consistency in training, even on hard days, builds mental endurance. Develop a routine. Do things like that. It is super important to stick to a routine. And many of you know who do have solid routines know that once you get that as part of your weekly routine, that it becomes so second nature that you don't even think about it. So building that in your running or whatever fitness that you're doing, whether that be biking, swimming, running, or any other form of endurance, getting consistency is a big part of being able to strengthen your mental toughness. And then a few more. Managing, and this one is a little bit specific, but it will help you in this instance, and that's managing race day nerves. A lot of times, especially the first time you've ran a distance, let's say, you've ran like some 5 and 10Ks and you're stepping up to the half, or you've ran some half marathons and you're stepping up to the full marathon. A lot of times runners can struggle with anxiety before a race because it's an unknown. You haven't entered into that distance yet often. Most times when you're running a marathon or even a half, you haven't ran that distance yet. And so it's important to go over that prior to race day and learn how to manage some of that. Some of the things that you can do, I don't know. The big thing for me, especially if you're in a running group, oftentimes you have people around you that have been there and done that, to use that term. Talk to those people. Talk to the people that have been there and done that and get advice. Like, for me, one of the big things that I took away going into my first marathon was telling myself that I cannot possibly be going slow enough in that first half of the race. No matter how good you're feeling, tell yourself you can't be going slow enough. And again, this is about what is your goal at the end of the race. If your goal is to have a solid race that feels really good from beginning to end, especially for a marathon, and one of the things that I often tell people is tell yourself through those first 8 to 10 miles, you can't be going slow enough. And oftentimes you will think that you are. Let's say you have a goal of a 9-minute pace, and you go out with a goal of, let's say 9:10s, whatever. And your goal is to negative split down to 850, and you're running those 9:10s ish, 9:05 to 9:10s, and you feel amazing and you want to go, and you have to tell yourself, no, you're not going slow enough. It's going to be really easy to go fast. And so one of the things you can do is taking that pressure and that anxiety of, oh my goodness, I gotta hit this pace or I'm not gonna accomplish my goal. Well, throw that out the window. Talk to the people in your group, find out what is successful for them, and apply that to your race. Some of the things you can do is like visualize even having a successful race. This goes back to those negative thoughts. Take those negative thoughts that are coming in and creeping in, especially when they're not warranted or founded on anything other than just anxiety and fears of the unknown. Take those negative thoughts and replace them with, I'm going to have a good race today. Positive thoughts. These are really good key things that you can have about a race, especially on race day. Replace negative thoughts with positive ones. Visualize yourself going across the finish line, having had a good race, and apply your training to that race. But I caution you, you will feel good in those first 8 to 10 miles. So don't think you're going to turn your training that you've been training for a 9-minute pace into all of a sudden being able to run an 8:30 pace. Don't do it. You're setting yourself up for failure and a very miserable last 8 to 10 miles because you will eventually get to 18 and go, holy cow, I still have 8 miles to go and I'm already at the end of my rope. And so, but keep those race day nerves in check. And if you can, go into a race with a friend or somebody that has been there and done that so that you can feed off their chilled energy as well. Again, goes back to that running group comment that if you are in a running group and you are running a race and you're doing it with somebody who has been there and done that, chances are because they have been through it, and you know who you're running with, those that can control those nerves and things like that. Run a race with them, get in a starting corral with them. Oftentimes they will have a little bit different energy and it's going to be more of a fun, less stressful, less anxiety ridden energy. And that will rub off. You will feel that and let go of the nerves. And then the final two here, learning from setbacks, injuries, missed goals, tough races are super common types of setbacks. You just got to learn how to manage those. I think often a good thing to do when you run into some of these is instead of focusing on the impact of what it took away from you in, let's say, a race or a goal or a PR or something like that, you can focus on what it is going to allow you to do. Number one, it's going to give you, if it's an injury, it's a forced rest, which oftentimes runners who are super high and motivated in the next race or something like that can often overdo it, and they ignore the rest. And sometimes this can help force it. And I think if you are, again, going back to these running groups, I don't know why I'm stuck on that. You can probably talk to a lot of people in running groups who have had forced rests for whatever reason, and all of a sudden they come back and have a PR. It just happens. It happens all the time. We do need to allow our bodies to have rest. But anyway, these setbacks can be many things. Life gets in the way, something like that. You had to travel for work and there's no way for you to take your running stuff. Well, oh no, what is that going to do? I'm 3 weeks out from a race and I should be getting my long run in. Well, hey, don't focus on the negative. Focus on replacing those negative thoughts with positive ones. What's it going to allow you to do? And roll with it. I mean, life happens. We are not professional runners and we do not get paid to do this. So that's part of the journey. It's part of the process. Maybe it's going to allow you to run a race instead of in the middle of summer. You have to shift. And now that A race is now your B race, setting you up for your A race in the fall. You just got to shift those things. So, but learn how to roll with those. Learn that life happens. Learn that injuries happen. Learn that setbacks of one way, shape, or form happen, and roll with it. It will help to mentally strengthen you and get you out of negative, going down the negative thoughts rabbit hole. And then this last one, and this is something I kept this for last specifically because I think it's where I'm at right now, and that's finding your why. Why do you run? Why do you do what you do? Why is that next race so important? Or why is this training run so important? And I think that's a little bit about where I'm at, but mental toughness is easier to build when runners have a clear motivation. The power of identifying a personal why, whether it's a health goal, personal challenge, or love for the sport, it can all help to push through tough days for runs and low motivation days. So yeah, I think it's important for us to all, as we've been doing a sport or whatever for a long time, to take a step back and go, why am I doing this? I had a ton of motivation, especially in the beginning, and the progression for me was, as we have talked about on the podcast, was I am generally speaking motivated by the race. So my training usually is all building to a race. Well, if I don't have a race on the calendar, that has always been a typical reason for me to slow down my training and not get in the days. And so I have to remember why I do this. There's a lot about the sport of running more than just the race. There is a social aspect. I used to love our Wednesday run groups that I showed up for that more religiously than going to work or going to church. I felt like, to an extent, or at least it was like right up there. And that went away, and then the races have started to go away. So I'm sensing this lack of motivation. I think I need to take a step back and reanalyze my why behind the sport of running, and find some new motivation there, and help to strengthen that toughness, because I do enjoy the sport. I obviously enjoy it enough to talk about it on a podcast and share our thoughts and experiences, as we mentioned, that make it fun and sometimes very difficult. And this seems to be a season of being very difficult. And so just refocusing the why. And so that's, again, another important piece of this as to how to help strengthen your mental toughness in running, because it is a very difficult hobby and sport mentally. So, you look at different things that can help keep you healthy. Not a lot of people think of, oh man, I just think running would be so much fun to help keep me physically healthy. It's often some kind of other sport that we did in high school or something like that would be fun. But I kind of speak out of both sides of my mouth. There is definitely a fun side to running, and I don't think you get to experience that unless you get out there and log the miles, get in groups, and get the social community aspect of it. And then you do actually see some of the fun side of it. And the races, they are fun. There's a lot to those as well. That's why we discuss them and talk about the ones that we really like, and some of them that we struggle with wanting to recommend. But at any rate, I think those are just some important things that we want to talk about. And next week we're going to dive into this backyard last man standing style ultra, which I think is really cool. And if you have not heard about that, you should definitely go check it out. And with that, check out our Facebook page, check out our YouTube page, check out our Patreon, go subscribe, do all of that. Like, share it with somebody who enjoys running. We really do love to talk to others that love running. So share it with somebody who loves running, and hopefully we can communicate and they can comment and we can talk about things. And we look forward to that. But with that, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the I Don't Know Running podcast. Be sure to tune in next time as we share more about what we just don't know. Until then, happy running.